Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Master Phil in your corner with your host, Master Phil.
Wow, Master Phil here with Master Phil in your corner for another great episode. I believe this is episode number 63, and we have a couple of great guests in here today, and we're tackling a very, very sensitive subject today. But you know what? These things have to be addressed, and we're going to speak about some uncomfortable truths. But before we do that, we're going to thank our sponsors. So, first sponsor we're going to thank, of course, is philross.com, because without the philross.com website, we would not be possible. This wouldn't be possible, would it?
No?
No, it just wouldn't happen at all. And don't forget, want to cue that other music, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So now we also hopefully let me introduce the guest first before we get into the next sponsor. Okay, right over here on my left hand side. It's my left hand, right? But here it looks like it's my right side. I get all confused here. Is Dr. Mike Evangel, chiropractor, and he was a star of the Super Mike television show on health and wellness. Hello, Dr. Mike. How are you?
Yes, Phil. Good, thanks.
Good. And then, of course, we have Mr. Gene Zanetti from the formerly wrestling, but now winning mindset. He's both these gentlemen are repeat offenders. I mean, repeat guests on the show. So we've had them on before, and they were just great. So we're having them back. We love having these guys who did put forth great performances, had some great content, and we're able to have them back again. And I think what we're going to address today is apropos. But before we get into our subject, I want to talk about Megalo Social. Okay? Megalo Social. Megalo Social is a free platform. What I mean by free is it's free to sign up, and it's also free as far as the content you put on there. We don't care what you put up. You know what? There's no little fact checkers or fake checkers or anything like that. And we have a little song about Megalo. Megalo. Whoa, ho, 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 Megalo. Yeah. Facebook's got to go. YouTube, Twitter too. Yeah. Goodbye to Mark Zuckerberg. Toodles to Sandor Pache as well. You got to go. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. We want free speech right now. And you'll get it with Megalo and How. Yeah, hey. So there you go. So, the last time I did this song, our membership spiked. I mean, it went up like 1,000-fold. And I don't know how, because I don't think I have a very good voice. But maybe, people like the Megalo to Louie, Calypso Louie song, People, I think they're liking it. I don't know. But hopefully we're trying to get our special guest here. Oh, boy. So now I'm just going to call Brandon, because he's having a little difficult right now where he's at. But we're going to put Brandon Gibson on right now. And we're calling him. Let's see.
Hello.
Hey, Brandon, can you hear us? You're live on the air with the Master Phil in Your Corner podcast. I don't know if you can see us where you're at, but we just did our Megalo commercial. And just give people a quick 60-second, talking about what we're doing with Megalo. And remember, no cursing on the Master Phil podcast.
All right. Well, the whole idea was to start up a Facebook competitor in the beginning. And throughout my development of that, I realized that wasn't enough. So I set out to compete with every other big tech company out there by building competing platforms. And I have 133 that we haven't even started on yet. So that was the idea behind it all.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now we also have a phone coming out. We have video, right? We have like Megalo Jitter, like something that rhymes with it.
Twitter alternative.
Yes, and we have Megalo Rambler for the video, right?
Right. Also have a banking system called Bank Caro that's going to be moved into. That's going to be also available on the phone. It's kind of like a Chime with PayPal combined, more or less.
Very cool. And you're also an Army veteran, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we have an Army veteran here from Afghanistan. I believe you're in Afghanistan, correct? In the theater
3
there?
years, yes. 3 tours.
Yeah. So he did some tours. He was protecting our country. Now he's protecting our free speech as well.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome, Brandon. Well, thank you. And listen, hopefully you'll get to listen to the whole show. We got an awesome subject here today, and I got some great guests in. So we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep.
All right. So, guys, we have a serious subject to address here. And as we all know, we had that Uvalde shooting, which, I mean, the Buffalo one was bad enough. It was disgusting. This one is doubly disgusting because it has to do with children. And you know what, as with most issues, it's not just one. I mean, every gun grabber out there, everyone against the Second Amendment say, ban this, ban that, take this away, take that away. That's not the answer. The thing is that by you just going to do that right off the bat, to me is akin to an overweight person on the ground having a heart attack, and you tell them, hey, you shouldn't eat cheeseburgers. Let's stop. Let's address the situation. I mean, first and foremost, we have to fortify these schools. So you know what? When someone has got a cut, you stop the bleeding. We have to stop the bleeding right now. We have to protect the children. That to me is a no-brainer and should be done ASAP. We have to beef up the security. We have to get that training in. Standing outside 40 minutes, so forth, is not the way to handle this situation. I mean, matter of fact, it took a parent who happened to be an off-duty border agent to bust through a window, get his wife and child out, and then, with a borrowed shotgun from the barber, take care of business with this dirtbag. We also have to look at some other things as far as like video games. Let's just quickly go over that point number one, guys. So what do you think about that? We have this the lack of security, the lack of direction, in the schools. I mean, we protect the banks, we protect all these people in Congress and all these politicians who want our guns to take away, but they're protected by heavily armed people. What should we do as far as fortifying these schools?
Phil, before you guys get into it, like we just sent like $40 billion to another country. Right. Why don't we protect our schools first?
Right. I mean, we sent $40 billion overseas. I mean, $40 billion can fortify a lot of doors and provide a lot of security agents for these schools. I mean, look, you have man-trap doors, one entrance, one exit, and someone with a gun standing there. Boom, problem solved. 99% of it.
Well, definitely. It's a situation where, you have to fortify the schools. You have to get proper training. And you can't have a situation that happened down there where they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs, handling the situation more like a hostage negotiation rather than an active shooter. They have to move, and they have to have proper training, and they can't have a situation like happened down there ever again.
Every second is a wasted second. And you have to act quickly, and these police officers and moving on up. I don't know if they were going under direct command or whatever the situation was, but very much like the Parkland shooting. Actually, many people are not aware of this though, but that coward from Broward, he's actually up for felony charges right now. He's going to be tried in September, I believe, on his failure to act. His failure to act and actually run the other way. So now we also had these video games, and they desensitize the youth. I mean, Gene, being a combat athlete, like for most of your life, you know what it feels like when someone grabs you by the neck and bangs your head off the mat, and you catch a knee in the ribs or something like that, right? But many of these kids, they sit there on a video screen and play these kill games, and they don't have any idea what it feels like to have like pain, either to themselves or to others, that it's real. I think this is one of the problems.
Yeah, partly because they're living in that virtual reality, being on video games too much. It's not saying it's bad altogether, but excessive time, which is probably a lot less time than people think it is, being on video games or watching TV instead of getting out there and playing more. A pickup game of baseball, pickup game of football. Do you ever see that on the streets anymore?
No.
People going door to door, calling for friends, ring the doorbell, and hey, do you want to come outside and play? We're not seeing that as much. So yeah, they're getting kind of a small fix from the video games, this virtual reality. So yeah, they got to get out there and play, see what it's really like.
Yeah, feel it. That we also have these broken and fatherless homes. Okay, I mean, if you look at the increase, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there were more guns per capita in this country. Yet, where were the mass shootings? Why weren't they happening? You know what? Maybe we didn't have to have the security training, but we didn't have these video games. There were a lot less fatherless homes, right? Look at all the gang violence that's going on. All this gang violence is occurring because there's no real guidance. So, these fatherless homes or absentee parents, things like that, leave a lot of children to their own devices, and then they fall into something and need some type of leadership.
Right? It's the video games, it's the social media, it's the music, it's the movies, it's all the above. A complete desensitization to violence, and yeah.
And another thing also is, and I know you're a big proponent of this too. Lack of religion. Lack of religion.
Absolutely.
We used to have the 10 Commandments up in schools and buildings. Now they don't have it anymore. Okay. I mean, look, thou shalt not kill. Boom. Okay. These are tenets that were developed for a reason, because they help with the survival of our, of society. I mean, they help with the humans to survive. I mean, people look at some religions and they say, well, this one doesn't eat pork. This one doesn't do this. All of those things were done because of safety, because they wanted people to survive. Same thing with these commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, blah, 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 all the way down the list. These are all things that help with the survival of humans. Okay? These things were developed for a reason.
Not but the lack of good role models too.
Yeah. You look at a lot of these athletes and so forth that do not portray what we should portray as people in the public eye.
Right, we put these other people on the podium, these celebrities, and then we put them in the place of God. And we could putter around the surface and really get it, say, well, it could be this, it could be that. But the reality is, when you take God off the throne, you're going to put other things on the throne. And when you do that, that's the heart of the issue. So the real answer is to bring Christ the King back. And if we don't have that, we're destined to fall in direct proportion to the amount that we deviate from God's laws of love.
Oh yeah. And now let's look at the other subject that people are afraid to mention. But I have heard a couple of other hosts do it. One I will mention is Michael Savage, podcaster. He's brought this one up several times on the radio. Laura Ingraham brought it up once when she first got on the air at Fox, and then never mentioned it again. Now, Greg Kelly brought it up on Newsmax and also on WABC right after the Uvalde shooting. But I've spoken to this, and as you guys both know, I have a presentation on it. I've done it at the college and at the high school level and at county-wide level, and I ruffled a few feathers with it. But I see some notes here. Dr. Mike says uncomfortable truth. It is an uncomfortable truth. We have these prescription drugs called SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and other psychotropic drugs. And you know what? The wanton distribution of these medications and what it's doing to our society, and especially our youths. Because you know what? At a certain point, if these children are on this, their bodies lose the ability to modulate serotonin properly. So, gentlemen, I know. Look, we have Gene with a master's in psychology, and we have Dr. Evangel over here you guys, this is right up your alley between.
Absolutely.
So run with it.
Okay, first of all, it all started back with John D. Rockefeller. Now, why do I bring that up? Around 1900, he controlled 90% of the oil in North America. But it wasn't just oil. They used the oil to make pharmaceuticals. So he wanted to get into that whole industry. So what he did is in 1910, contracted Abraham Flexner to come up with a report that presented to Congress to demonize natural health care and to push pharmaceuticals. That's where it all started. They purchased a hook, line, and sinker, Congress. And he also got the newspapers at the time to say bad articles to demonize chiropractic and homeopathy and herbology and the Native American, tinctures. All these different things were thrown out the window for drugs and for profit. They also tried to do it in China, and they fell flat on their face because Chinese medicine was really ingrained there. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening is they gave a lot of money then to the medical schools to push pharmacology and get rid of natural healthcare. And that's when it really started going downhill. In 2005, they started to be able to advertise directly to the consumer prescription drugs. And Prozac was the first selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor that went on the market. But coincidentally, what happened with L-tryptophan, which is a very good natural treatment for depression, increases serotonin naturally without suicide and homicide as two side effects, that was taken off the market. And about 10 days later, Newsweek did a feature article on Prozac and how good it was. Mm-hmm. And there's all downhill. Prozac and Paxil are the two main ones. But they really
Wellbutrin, Abilify. I mean, you name it. One thing also that we have to look at this is that what are these potential side effects? Because you brought up homicidal and suicidal, right?
Right.
But many of them do not put forth that they do cause homicidal tendencies.
Well, they have to put the black box warning now on the literature that's in the packaging about these. They call it black box warnings. There's a black box right around the warning. But the pill for the ill is not the answer. God, talked about God before. God designed the human body to be the most perfect creation in the universe. And it works flawlessly when given the proper set of circumstances. But because of excesses and deficiencies, we don't have the proper set of circumstances. The problem now is that with all the genetically modified food that messes up the gut, because over 95% of the serotonin is produced by the gut and the rest in the brain. So if you don't have good gut health, and very few Americans do, then you're not going to have good serotonin production. It comes down to that. So gut health is essential. Also, omega-3 fats are essential. Vitamin D is essential. Omega-3 fats, 95% of the planet is deficient in omega-3s. 95%, the greatest nutritional deficiency on the planet. There's not enough omega-3s to really give everybody in the world to get them up to speed. But Dr. Sirhan from Harvard did research on that in the 1980s and 90s. Actually coincidentally, there's a lab up there named after him, Dr. Sirhan. Yeah. Sirhan Lab. But you need at least 8% of omega-3 fats in the red blood cell membrane to produce chemicals called resolvins to heal properly and for your immune system to work properly. And without that, we're lost. And the patients I test, not one of them was above 8%.
Well,
initial test.
Yeah, talking about gut health and proper nutrition, don't forget Fit Team. All this products, 100% natural for your immune system, your gut health, available on philross.com. Now, I'm going to ask Gene, now we have some of these serious, significant side effects from SSRIs, psychiatric effects. So they can cause mania, hypomania, the elevated mood, depression, aggravation. They can cry, irritability, anger, hypersensitivity, agitation, so forth and so on. Can we speak to this and then elaborate on some of this and what are obviously some of the dangers of this?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I think a lot of people think, at least, or maybe they don't say, but you watch this on TV where we're getting advertised these prescription drugs for anxiety, depression, and then it's supposed to treat depression, and they say may cause suicidal ideation. Everyone's eyes should open up and say, wait, isn't this exactly what you're trying to prevent? Like, this is the worst of the worst, not just being down, not just feeling sad, but you could have thoughts about killing yourself. This should actually be massively alarming to everyone. You should wonder what's going on there. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, here's the thing is also is that people don't realize that over 97%, virtually every single mass shooting from Columbine on up, the shooters were either on or just came off of some psychotropic drug. Doesn't that raise a red flag anywhere? Listen, look, there are certain, I must digress that maybe they're on those psychotropic drugs because of their tendencies, but this is, yeah, you have to look at this. And I'm not against 100% against all these drugs, because there's some people that do need them, but it's just that the wanton distribution of them. I mean, you look at it right now, what do we have? 50% of the drugs are being used in this country at 5% of the population. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, 50% of the prescription drugs in the world. And we have 55% of the mass shootings of the world. So that's pretty close correlation.
Yeah. Yeah. So now when we're talking about this, how do we get this out to people that they have to take a look at this? I mean, look, I personally, I got involved in this about 15 years ago, for personal reasons. And then I started studying this and I found out a lot of information. I also found out something, and maybe you can speak to this too, as because you have a degree in it, but that in the psychological community, as far as it based on science, the stats that I was able to pull up was that, most things in medical science, in order to use them on humans, that you have a p-value of 0.1% to say it either proves or disproves a null hypothesis. Now, I know you probably took the same statistics courses as I did, but in one of these studies, it revealed that in the psychological realm, there was a 25% acceptable range. Did you find that data as well, or was that something that was discussed where they would accept if it was even like flipping cards, 1 out of 4, that would be an acceptable? They would prove or disprove the null hypothesis with that wide of a range of acceptability.
Yeah, that's crazy. You would expect it to be way lower with medicine. And if I'm not mistaken, what I heard was that in order to get a drug approved by the FDA, you just need two research papers that prove that it's more effective than a placebo. Not effective than the other drugs in the market, but more effective than a placebo. Now, the file draw phenomena, which most people aren't aware of, that a lot of studies happen that get pushed away into a file draw because they did not have the results that the people were looking for.
Right.
There's big money to be gained from this, and that's what makes it different. Oh, big time.
Yeah. Well, I'm I don't know if you took this certification, but I'm CITI certified. That's ethics and testing. And you know what occurred with the opioid epidemic, right? What they did was they filed away a lot of the stuff. They skewed data. And you guess what else they did it with, which hasn't come out yet? SSRIs.
Absolutely. They've been manipulating data for so long. It's really criminal what's going on. And the use of the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors went up from 1991 to 2018, over 3,000% increase. And that was up to 2018 before the pandemic. Since the pandemic, it's a lot worse because so many people are depressed from the pandemic. And of course, liquor stores were essential, but churches were not, because liquor, can calm people down. But it is absolutely amazing, though, when you start looking at all the stats, with the correlation you said before with the number of mass shooters that have been on these drugs. And unfortunately, with the HIPAA laws, with the privacy laws, we can't find out some of the people, what they were on, because even if they were killed during the encounter, their records are sealed for 50 years and they still have privacy. Didn't care about anybody's privacy when they were killing all the victims, though.
Yeah, what's funny is that there was a study done by Miller in 2009, said 31 of these medications were found in over 78% of people that committed violent crimes. Is that insane? I'm sure it's probably higher now. This was 13 years ago. I'm sure it's higher now.
Right. So the question becomes, well, do they know about this? Are we the only ones who know about this? No, of course they know about this. Why? Why? Why is this going on? And I think we all know the answer to that. You follow the trail. It's about the almighty dollar. Cash
Absolutely.
rules everything around us. Cream, get the money, dollar bill, yo. And the problem is we're having big business and big government who are basically in bed together, because who's electing the officials, but who's paying for that? Well, the big business. And then who's going to protect them? The big government. So you look at both parties and you say, well, that's not really the answer, because they're working together on this. So we as a people need to educate ourselves, wake up, and we need to make certain demands, or we're not going to see any changes.
Big Pharma owns the politicians because they give to both sides of the aisle, and they own the media because you can't watch an hour of primetime television without seeing at least a couple prescription drug commercials. And then they even give out in the Sunday Parade magazine, they give out the little vouchers, bring this to your doctor to get, authorized to get the prescription. So people are self-prescribing now. The doctor's supposed to prescribe, not the patient.
Well, we had a pre-discussion, and we're one of only 2 countries that permit prescription drugs to be advertised on television.
Right, New Zealand and the United States.
Yeah, great, that's awesome.
Right, so, unbelievable. Right, so that's why it has to happen at this lower level, at an individual level, that we need to understand what's going on and we need to do something about it. And I remember studying in my doctoral program and talking about anxiety and depression, and them speaking about SSRIs, and they were saying, yes, they are effective, but once people go off of the drugs, then they have the same symptoms as before. Well, that makes sense, because you're putting a Band-Aid on it, which sometimes a Band-Aid is necessary. We're not against medicine, but for a long-term benefit, it needs to be in conjunction with therapy. That's why, in my opinion, to prescribe drugs that have all the danger that could potentially go along with it is this, and to not mandate that counseling go along at the same time is criminal. It's actually criminal. There should be 100%. Mandatory counseling for people who are on these drugs.
And the U.S. government statistics showed 17% of adults in 2018 were on antidepressants. 17% of our country. That's mind-boggling. 40 million prescriptions of these drugs. The most popular, Prozac and Paxil.
Right. And I know it's not our topic today, but Adderall, Ritalin, it's the same kind of thing. For focus, there are focusing strategies. And with our business wrestling mindset, winning mindset, we teach people also, part of it, how to focus. And that's a strategy. Those are things you need to learn over time. It's not just pump the kid with the medicine without therapy.
You know what? The thing is, I am a big proponent of cognitive type therapy and learning how to control your focus, and learning, teaching yourself the coping mechanisms and employing them. And the other thing is that one of these that these studies showed that exercise was just as effective, if not more, than these drugs. Exercise and proper nutrition are much more effective tools for this. Now,
but there's no money in that.
No, there's no money in it. Of course there's not. There's no money. These guys can't make money on it. That's number one. Number two, the difficult thing that I haven't figured this out yet, but maybe somebody can, is when someone is like this, how do you get them to exercise? Someone who's depressed, they don't want to always exercise. They feel that they can't get moving. And you know what the other thing is that they're putting forth, I know, but I don't want to forget this thought, was that they want to give people an even mood. No, you can't just be an even keel person, because life is about peaks and valleys. That's what makes the highs so good and the lows you want to get out of them, right? But you know what? You can't enjoy anything if everything is even keel, right? So we have to teach people how to deal with the lows as well as the highs, and how to employ these coping mechanisms. And one of these coping mechanisms, one of these ways to release anxiety, one of these ways to avoid depression, is through the endorphins and the dopamine being released when you exercise. How great do you feel after your workout? I have to work out every day.
They call it the runner's high.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah. No, it's and that's why we have to understand there's other things that can be done rather than just the medicine. We have an immediate gratification culture. Instant popcorn, instant oatmeal, so on and so forth. So it's ingrained in our head that I shouldn't feel any suffering or any negative emotions whatsoever. And if I feel a negative emotion, there's something wrong with me. No, and that's why we have to get back to truth. We have to speak about ultimate reality. We have to speak about God. In a fallen world, after the fall of Adam and Eve, our inclinations inside, we have an inclination to evil. Our natural tendencies are all off. They're thrown off completely. So we need to understand that if we're going to make any progress. Suffering is a natural part of living in this world. So we need to know how do we address that? And that means we need to know what we are as people. As humans, we're body and soul composites. We're not all body like the naturalists would lead us to believe. This atheistic, Marxist, communist mentality that's being pushed on us. We're not pure material. We also have a soul. And so knowing why I love your show with spirit, mind, and body, that if we're not addressing all those aspects, if I'm struggling spiritually, guess what? That's going to bleed into my mind and my body. If I'm struggling mentally, that could bleed into my body and spiritual life. We need to address all of those. And it's hard. It's not an instant fix. It takes struggle.
Yeah, it takes work. It takes hard work. And again, this instant gratification society that we have right now, people want it immediately. They don't want to suffer. They don't want to feel pain. They want to be satisfied instantaneously. Well, you know what? That's not the way it works. Because the thing is that when you work for something, just think about that. When you put effort into something and you attain that goal and you've achieved it, how great does that feel?
Absolutely.
There's nothing like it. And I know that we had this conversation another time that prior, we're speaking about the soul. Mm-hmm. And remember you brought up that study?
Yep.
Why don't you tell everyone about that study? You'll love this, Gene.
Well, it was a study done in Massachusetts in 1907 and Haverhill, Massachusetts, Dr. Duncan McDougall. And what he did is weigh people upon death, and he lost 21.4 grams of mass upon death. I did the math, and it's amazing because about 1 gram of mass is released from the first generation atomic bombs. So if that's the soul leaving the body, then it's a heck of a lot of energy in the soul, 21.4 grams. And that's probably the best scientific evidence of that soul existing. But what I want to do is I want to recreate McDougall's experiments, and then it's my theory that either upon implantation or fertilization, there's going to be a 21.4 gram mass increase of the mother. If that happens, then, Roe versus Wade is going to be an interesting topic. I'm looking at the science. I'm not looking at the politics involved, but, people need facts to make a decision. It's like, let's make a deal. Door number 1, 2, or 3. If you see what's behind the door, you know which one you want. But only through the truth will we get really the knowledge we need to make decisions.
I feel like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. It's like, you want the truth? You can't handle the truth. And I'll tell you, I don't think most people can handle the truth.
No.
And the thing is, you have to be able to look at yourself and say, gosh, I have to question this stuff. I mean, look at this, the fiasco we had with the coronavirus. Okay. I mean, again, a whole nother topic, but the thing is that these things are all interrelated. The things that we have to question, you have to question these drugs being applied, being prescribed, especially for children, and you know what the answer is when they're not getting the result they want from these psychiatrists, they'll up the dosage and or add another one in. So you have a cocktail. And what do we have? We have a bunch of zombies who are they're missing pieces of their life. They're gone from their memory 100%. I don't know if people realize that if you have a 15-year-old kid on these drugs, they are not going to remember certain times of their life. They're gone. It's blocked. And the things, if you're on this long enough, you're on this for 6 months, especially at the younger ages, these children lose the ability to regulate their own serotonin. So you have people that are 50, 60 years old still on these antidepressants.
Well, that's the best business model for the
of course,
from the womb to the tomb.
Yeah. So we want to keep us on that. I mean, when I go get checked out, I'm 59. I'll be 60 in a few months, right? And I go when I ever have to go to the doctor and say, what are you on? I'm like, nothing. Like, oh, wow, you're not on anything? Yeah, I'm on. I work out, take my supplementation, and I eat right. And I'm basically the same weight since I graduated college in 1984. So
well, one other statistic I want to bring up, the Crime Prevention Research Center, 97.8% of public shootings occur in gun-free zones.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. Why? Sitting ducks.
Right, exactly.
Look, these guys are crazy, yet they're sane enough to go and attack when there's no gun around. Okay, the famous one was got years ago when this guy was on a ferry in New York City, and he gets out a samurai sword, and he said he's crazy, start cutting people up. A cop drew his gun on him, an off-duty cop drew his gun, and all of a sudden the guy dropped the sword. Yeah, all of a sudden he's not crazy when he's going to get shot. Okay, you know what? I don't buy a lot of this stuff. Okay? If they're selling, I'm not buying. Okay, something has to be done with the mental health of people in our country. Okay?
Right. Step one, it begins on truth. I mean, where else would you base the knowledge on if you didn't have absolute truth, an objective standard that's external to you, that's external to me, that we are conforming to? The way we're doing it now in our society of moral relativism is, well, that's true for you and that's true for me. No, morals are just as objective as the laws of gravity, as the laws of math. You know why people don't like the truth? Because it's divisive, because it cuts a hard line. If 2 + 2 is 4, that means it's not 5, it's not 3. And that doesn't sit well with people when they know that means they need to change, that they might be doing something wrong morally, that they might not be doing it, not just an inappropriate or unacceptable behavior, but a bad behavior, a morally bad behavior that needs to change. So we whitewash the language, we gloss over that, and that's why we have to start with truth. What is truth? And you don't get to that if you don't first ask these ultimate metaphysical questions about the nature of reality itself. What is reality? Is there a purpose to life? And what is being a human? What does that mean? You don't get that right, you're going to fall off the path.
I'm going to have to ask yourself, why are we here? Why are we here? Just take up time, space, and resources? Or are we here for a greater purpose? I mean, I believe we're here for a greater purpose. And you know what? If you're here for a greater purpose, guess what? You have someone above you. You got a boss. Our boss is up there. Okay. And if you don't want to accept that, well, you're lying to yourself. And if you don't want to continue to lie to yourself, well, you can, but you're only hurting yourself, and actually, though, are hurting others too.
A couple of things I wanted to bring up before, because then we're getting close to the end, is that the gut health of Europeans are much different from Americans because they don't have genetically modified food over in Europe. It's banned. And they don't have glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is banned. And that really messes up our guts in the United States. Even wheat, they use Roundup to dry out as a desiccant to dry out the wheat in the fields. So unless you have an organic bread, you're getting Roundup. And what it does is it causes leaky gut syndrome. That's a whole other story. But it's amazing the difference in health around the world. Spain and Italy were the 1 and 2, we're 37th in health, although we spend more money than any other country in the world on our health.
Well, let's look at it here. How many people are obese in this country? We have over 72% of adults are overweight, and another 43.8% that are clinically obese. So, A, you're not moving enough. B, you're eating too much and of the wrong stuff. Let's face facts. Okay. You know what? You also want to wonder why so many people suffer from coronavirus and why they died. 94% of the deaths were related to sedentary lifestyle. So you know what? If you don't want to, I'm sorry if I'm offending someone. If you're taking it as an offense, it's not meant to. I'm here to help. I'm here to point out the truth. And you know what? If you find the truth offensive, I can't help you. But if you're willing to accept the truth, you want to accept the truth about being in shape. You want to accept the truth about a higher being. You want to accept the truth that we have to take control of our own lives. I can help you. If not, none of us can. But I know all of us guys here want to help people. And that's why we're here, why we're spreading the word, why we have the guts to come out and speak the unpopular word, which, by this, this modern day society calling us old heads and things like that, you know what? We are speaking the truth that they just don't want to, that they don't want to accept. But you know what? They're going to have to accept it at some point.
Every medical treatment, you have to do an analysis, the risks and the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out what's the greater risk, what's the greater benefit, and go with the odds. But the problem with the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors is like the old commercial for margarine going back when the Mother Nature ate the piece of bread with the margarine on it and said, oh, it's butter. No, it's margarine. And then she made it thunder and lightning, and the raccoon covered its eyes with its paws. But you can't mess with the human body. You have to help the body do its job. Serotonin should be, the reuptake, it should be broken down and reabsorbed by the body. It shouldn't be hanging around. All that extra serotonin can create anxiety. It can cause aggression. It can cause problems because there's negative feedback mechanisms in the human body. Like when you turn up the thermostat, you know, the heat goes up. When it reaches that temperature, it shuts off. It's negative feedback. The human body has that. But when you start messing with the body, you're really taking a risk. And the risk is with your health and the lives of others.
Right. Yeah. And people are ultimately, I mean, they're on these medications ultimately to be happy, content, and at peace. And we have to understand that even Aristotle said back thousands of years ago that you will not, about natural happiness. You can't reach perfect natural happiness. Aristotle, St. Thomas Aquinas, they all spoke about this because we were not ultimately meant for this world. We were meant for something greater. So knowing that not being in a perfect state of happiness is normal. Now, how do we deal with that? The answer is simple. It's not easy. Spirit, mind, and body health, all of those areas. It's difficult because the success is in the golden mean, not excess, not deficit, but right there in the middle. Now, it doesn't say being moderate, but we have to shift our optimal point back and forth. It's difficult. It's a world we constantly have to struggle. But when it's always, this will solve the problem. The magical pill thinking is one of the biggest errors that I see in our program, Winning Mindset. People looking for the quick fix, and it's not. There's no quick fix. In no area of your life do you feel that that's the case. In studies, being in shape, career, but yet when we have a problem, the first thing we jump to is what's the quick fix? So we need to remedy that within ourselves. We have to see that's our own deficiency.
It's funny. I'm writing a new book right now called Exercise Snacks, fitness 5 minutes at a time. And I say, you know what? This is not a quick fix. This is not a fad. Okay. You have to have consistency, and it takes time for things to develop. Nothing happens overnight. There's no quick fix. So if we're going to leave people with this thought, they have to take control of their situation. They have to realize that you have to abide by certain tenets. If you do not abide by these tenets, things are going to go awry, and you're never going to get to where you need to be.
Yeah, remember, Rome was not built in a day, but it burned down in one.
Yep. It's easier to destroy something than it is to build. I mean, you talk about these anarchists, right? When has an anarchist ever built anything? They never did. They tear them down. So, and unfortunately right now, the extremes are getting the attention and not what the middle road, not what the core of our society is and what it needs is getting the attention. So we have to right this ship and bring it back to where it needs to be. And that's why we keep speaking what we do, and we live the way we do. We present ourselves in the way we do, and our actions and words have to be brought out to the forefront.
I mentioned the ancient Greece before. Socrates said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." And that's really where we should be going. Mm-hmm. And everything you put in your body is either going to help you live longer or not as long. So make good choices.
Well, just the same thing with working out, or when you're talking about certain actions on the mat, right? So what's our winning mindset, wrestling mindset, is all about that, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, you want to be happy. That's a good sentiment that you have. You want to get there as quickly as you can. That's also a good sentiment. But now understanding that it doesn't happen automatically. So that has to be understood. And then the same thing with wrestling. Yeah, you might learn a couple junk moves, a couple junk techniques that you might be able to catch someone with and pin them quickly. But is that going to work against the better guy? And no, we all know that it's fundamentals that win. The junk works every now and then, but to beat the best guy, most of the time, you're going to have to win with fundamentals. That's true with life too. So it's good that everyone wants to be happy. It's good that everyone wants to get there. But what is your means to that end? That's what we're saying here.
Yeah. Wow. Guys, we had some excellent points there. I want to thank both you guys for coming in. Don't forget philross.com. Body Bell Method. We got we're taking the show on the road. We have a certification levels 1 and 2 out in Denver, Colorado. I'll be in Denver on the 30th and 31st of July for a seminar there, certification at the Lux Strength Fitness Gym out in Denver, Colorado. So don't forget Body Bell Method.
I just got one more for you, just for
Sure.
people that anyone who wants to see other films or documentaries on this topic that go into a lot of the intricacies that everyone's speaking about. Prescription Thugs by Chris Bell talks about a country built on basically addiction. And then also on Flow Wrestling, they just released a series on, not a series, just a video called Fight of Your Life on Gregor Gillespie, UFC fighter, as well as a lot of other wrestlers. It talks about these prescription drugs. You get a lot of information on this.
Oh, what about Mark Kerr, the Smashing Machine? Do you ever see that?
Okay.
That was
No.
oh God, you got to watch that. That was gosh, I think it was out about 15 years ago, maybe longer. Mark Kerr, the Smashing Machine, was on HBO about. I mean, the guy was a phenom wrestler, sick, and he was an incredible fighter. He had never actually been in a street fight ever, and then his first fight was in a UFC full contact match, and he was a champion, but he got hooked on these drugs, prescription drugs.
So we're talking a lot about people being happy and reaching a goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you've heard this with Kobe. He talks about like, the championships are great, but what he really found happy, enjoyable was the process, was the journey, and being in the gym 3 times a day. Like if you don't find any pleasure in that, like you're doing it all for the wrong reasons, and you'll never be happy.
Yeah, well, that's also where you make your relationships. Right? You make your relations when you're in the trenches with people, training, sweating, going toward a goal together. I mean, one person's helping the other person meet their goal, or you're hitting your goal as a team. But that's where you build the relationships, is in the trenches with others.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people, once they get to their goal, that's when they realize that there's something more. That's how a lot of people find the existence of God, that even in your greatest moments, it's still not enough. I mean, there's a real thing of post-PhD blues, post-Olympic blues. Why? Because they won the Olympics, they accomplished the goal, and now what? There's got to be something more. I go back to Ecclesiastes 3:11, where it says, God has put eternity in our hearts. In other words, we're never going to be satisfied. In City of God, St. Augustine, one of the church fathers, said, you have made us for yourself, O Lord. Our hearts are restless until they rest in you. So we're not going to have that ultimate fulfillment except in God. So that's what we have to know, that if we don't know it, we're destined to failure. Christ the King.
Yep. Hey, right with you. And the things, it's funny you brought that up, because a number of years ago I was hanging out, a bunch of guys were talking, and a friend of mine said, God, Phil, why are you working so hard? You made it. You're done. I'm like, made what? I mean, I'm looking for the next thing. I feel like I'm just getting into my groove right now. I feel I'm just starting to get somewhere. I mean, why should I stop? I mean, it's about perpetual motion. Why? Because God wants us to do that. We have a mission. Like Blues Brothers. We're on a mission from God. Okay. So that's what I mean. Honestly, I feel that that's part of me.
Look at how many people die soon after retiring.
Yep.
Right.
Purpose is gone. Your purpose is gone. Humans need purpose. So, there's a lot of people walking around dead because they have no purpose. That's why you need to work. You need to do good works. You need to be productive. And you know what? The drugs aren't going to help you get there. What's going to help you get there is your mind, your body, your soul put together.
And one other thing that I want to mention before we close is a positive attitude, because people have to be, it's not partly cloudy, it's partly sunny. You have to always look at the light at the end of the tunnel and move towards it. You can't be, getting life's ups and downs. It's true, but you have to have a goal. You have to have a mission. You have to work towards something, and you have to be proud of what you do, and instill that in your children too, because there's just so much depression, as we said out there. That's why people are going for these drugs, and the ill for the pill is not the answer.
Nope.
We have within ourselves the ability to be healthy if you work towards it and embrace it, and don't try to take the easy way out. Because there is no easy way. It's a lot easier to maintain your health when you have it, or obtain it before it's irreversibly lost. But there's so many people, they have one foot in a banana peel and the other one in the grave. And that's no fun place to be.
No.
Right. Getting the help, therapy, counseling. That's why we started Winning Mindset training, because you're actually learning the strategies to cope, as opposed to just a quick fix.
Oh, guys, great episode today. So we're wrapping up episode number 63. Again, thank you for our 2 great guests. You can find Dr. Mike, Super Mike Show. And of course, we got Gene at the Winning and Wrestling Mindset. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for being here.
And thank you guys for watching another episode of Master Phil in your corner.
Strength and honor.